Hello and welcome to today's episode of Rainer on Leadership, your online home for leadership lessons and advice for the local church. I'm your host, Sam Rainer. I have with me my co-host, my dad, the founder and CEO of Church Answers. And we also have a really great guest. You may have noticed it in the copy if you clicked on the link at the website to see who we're interviewing. But I'll let my dad introduce our special guest here in just a moment.
Well, I just want to say hi to Carey for those who are watching it on the YouTube.
Oh, you spoiled the surprise.
Oh, now I got to say
there's no
hi.
surprise.
Hi,
there's this guy at the microphone. If you're watching the YouTube, just kind of say that. They going to mention me.
Well, that's right. We're on YouTube. So I just realized that, yes, people are looking at Carey and realizing it is Carey Nieuwhof.
Yeah, and you know, there's that little block that I see. I don't know if the viewers see it that says Carey Nieuwhof.
I don't know.
We kind of gave it away, didn't we? With my face and my name actually in the box. I guess people know.
You know, Carey, you and William Vanderbloemen are the unmistakable names.
It's true, you know. William and I joke about that because you can misspell my name 100 ways, you'll still find me.
Yes.
Not a whole lot of Carey Nieuwhofs out there on the planet right now, you know.
Got that right.
For good reason. For really good reason.
I'll officially introduce Carey in just a moment. Sam, you can go ahead and welcome thank our sponsor, Walk Through the Bible.
We do. We've got a wonderful sponsor, Walk Through the Bible. For 45 years, Walk Through the Bible has helped people overcome obstacles to knowing and living God's Word. They have some innovative live events, very memorable things that they do, some high quality biblical resources, and their whole point is to inspire a passion for reading God's Word and advance biblical literacy. And they've been doing this in over 130 countries. So you got to check out their Old Testament live and New Testament live events where they help people discover and understand the big picture storyline of God's grand story of redemption. And in just 2.5 hours, a trained, certified Walk Through the Bible instructor will lead your church or group in a fun and unforgettable Bible experience event that teaches all the major events of the Bible, all the people, the chronology of both the Old Testament and New Testament. And here's the result. This is the good thing. 75% of participants, after they go through a Walk Through the Bible event, will commit to reading their Bible on a regular basis. They've helped millions of people. They can help you. Go to walkthru.org. That's walkthru.org/Bible experience. They've got a special offer there. So walkthru.org/Bible experience. Go check out Walk Through the Bible.
It is expected that anytime you have a guest that you're to laud that guest and just say wonderful things about him or her. And the reality of it is I never say anything that is disingenuous about our guests. It's all well-deserved. But this one's a no-brainer. I don't remember the first time I met you, Carey, but even before I met you, you're the real deal. And it's no mystery that you're a best-selling leadership author, speaker, podcaster. It's no surprise that you have 1.5 million people connecting with you every month. And you're just the real deal. So anytime we have the opportunity to have you, and we recently had your wife Tori on, anytime we have the opportunity to have you, we're just thrilled because I just love what you do. And I love you being a part of the ministry of which we're all a part.
Well, it's mutual, and thanks for the opportunity to come back. I appreciate it.
Well, we're going to be talking about a new book that you have too, and boy, does it hit home. Stress, burnout, overcommitment, overwork. We're going to talk about that. We'll be talking about your book. Well, let me just go and mention the book. It's in the show notes. For those of you who are watching by YouTube, you can see it in the notes. If you're listening by podcast, the book is At Your Best, strategy to get your time, energy, and priorities working in your favor. So for those of you who are constantly being tugged in a lot of different directions, or you just feel overworked, overcommitted, overwhelmed, you got to get this book. And Carey, I was walking through the airport one time, you may recall this, and there were your books in an airport store. My bucket list is to be in an airport store, my book to be in an airport store. I'm in an airport store, but my books have never been in an airport. And there you are. And so I took a picture of it and put it on social media. And it was part jealousy and part honoring you. But
we've all had those moments.
You got your book in an airport store, Carey. That's not fair.
Well, that was actually a prayer of mine when that was probably my last book, Didn't See It Coming. And I hoped, because I was at that time in airports almost every week. And I was hoping one day I'd write a book that would end up in an airport store. And then this one, it's weird because the church, I think you could argue that we're not making as many inroads as we might like to make in culture. So I tried to write this book, remembering that before I was in ministry, I was in law, and tried to think about all the lawyers I left behind. And we're still friends with actually a number of lawyers.
Oh, that's a country song. To all the lawyers I've left behind.
And I'm like, maybe.
Is it really? Or did you just make that up?
We'll move on.
I'm missing the joke. I don't listen to country music all that much. So
yeah, that really
it is a song. Is that Willie Nelson?
Yeah, Willie Nelson as a duet with another guy. It was To All the Girls I've Left Behind. To All the Girls.
That's right. All the girls I loved before.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And by the way, let me say this before we interrupted Carey twice, Sam. I did, you did, and then I did.
I was just Googling all the lawyers I left behind, and I don't know that I want to know the results.
I called Tony Tory, so I need to correct his wife's name.
Mm-hmm. She's Tony. That's okay.
She's Tony. They live in Toronto. Continue on, Carey.
No, I was just hoping, from an evangelism perspective, we could get this book into more than just church leaders' hands. So it's a thoroughly Christian book. I think it's very consistent with biblical principles. But I wrote it in a way, it's been endorsed by a number of church leaders, but also by Adam Grant, Patrick Lencioni, who is a Christian, Seth Godin, others like that who wouldn't necessarily identify with the church, with the hopes that we can get some very practical help into people's hands, because everybody, being overwhelmed, overworked, and overcommitted, that's a human issue. Church leaders are overwhelmed. Stay-at-home parents are overwhelmed. Business leaders are overwhelmed. And I used to be overwhelmed. Some days I'm still overwhelmed, but I found some stuff that I hope can help. And that's why I wrote the book.
Oh, I cannot wait to just dig into it. And I can't wait for our audience to dig into it. So let me just kick off the question send it back to Sam. How did we get here, Carey? How did we get to this point where we're so overworked, where you hear it again and again? You and I deal specifically with church leaders. Your audience is broader, but we'd certainly deal with church leaders. How do we get this way where we're so overcommitted, overworked, and overwhelmed?
I think a number of different reasons for it. Let's start historically. So you think about your grandparents' or great-grandparents' life. They dealt with a very, very smaller world. I read an interesting book last summer. It came out back when I was in college. Neil Postman's Amusing Ourselves to Death. And he talks about the middle of the 19th century. For the very first time, news from around the world could come to America. So if you were farming in the prairies somewhere in the Midwest, you're farming in the Midwest somewhere, you wouldn't necessarily know. If the King of England died, you might find that out 3 weeks later. Like, you're not going to know right away. News travels slow. And then the telegraph was invented, and suddenly you can get this news, not only that the king or queen died, but that there was something going on in a German village, or something happened in China, or something happened in Australia. And it wasn't news that you necessarily needed, but it was news that could now travel to where you were. And that started the age of instant communication. Of course, that morphed into broadcast and, the 20th century with the invention of radio and television. But if you think about even 15 years ago, it was a gentler age. Mm-hmm. Technology, which has a lot of strong points, I think has made us feel overwhelmed. When I was writing this book, I counted up the number of inboxes I have. I have 11 inboxes. Wow. So that means almost everywhere I look, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, public email, private email, everywhere I look on every device, people are messaging me. And I'm not unique. Everybody has that. And we all have something from low hundreds to thousands or tens of thousands, millions of followers who try to connect with us digitally. And we live in a culture that is now 24/7. And I think it's exhausting us. I don't think we were designed for it. I don't think we were designed to run at this pace. We don't have good boundaries. We don't know when to turn things off and when to pay attention. And what's worse is the communication is flat. A text from your mom, for example, which would theoretically be very important, comes in at the same level and same priority level as a text from someone you haven't spoke to in 3 years, at the same level that some random spam came into your inbox with. So you've just got messages from everywhere. There's no triage system. And those devices are the devices that many people sleep with every night. So there's no off switch.
Wow.
So, Carey, one of the things that you've noted is this stress spiral. What is that, and what does it do to people?
Yeah, it's my attempt to define what a lot of people are struggling with and how I feel like I spent my 30s caught up in a stress spiral. So at the time, I was leading a growing church, rapidly growing church. We had multiple years of 30% growth. And you know what that's like. They say sustainable growth is about 15%. Anything above that becomes very hard to manage. And so we were just kind of out of control growth. I certainly wasn't at the emotional health level that I should have been in my 30s. And so the stress spiral, I think is my attempt to define where a lot of people find themselves. And that is they're overwhelmed, they're overworked, and they're overcommitted. And it's as a result of how the three primary assets we get every day are handled. And if you think about most days, we all have to manage time, we have to manage our energy, and we have to manage competing priorities. So when you're in the stress spiral, your time is unfocused, your energy is unleveraged, and your priorities keep getting hijacked, mostly by other people. And so that defines the spiral that we keep being sucked down into that I call the stress spiral.
We are talking to Carey Nieuwhof. Thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube. And, it's almost cliche to say this person doesn't need an introduction, but it's really almost true to say that Carey Nieuwhof does not need introduction. And when he talks about life issues, whether it's you don't see something coming or whether you're dealing with stress and burnout, you just need to listen and look at the show notes, get the book At Your Best, How to Get Time, Energy, and Priorities Working in Your Favor. And you're going to be blessed by it. All right, Carey, burnout's epidemic. What's at stake if we don't get this turned around? What's at stake if we don't change and what's at stake if we don't start living at a sustainable pace?
Well, what's at stake for a lot of leaders is they will hit a fairly high level of burnout. And it's almost an epidemic in ministry. I think you read a lot of pastors who are burned out. Sometimes it means they leave the ministry. Their calling isn't done, but they're done because they don't know how to cope anymore. It's like, I just can't do this. If this is the rest of my life, I'm done. Or in my case, my burnout was severe enough that my body basically shut down. I had 3 months where I lost all my energy, all my passion, perpetual brain fog, and I thought it was over. And by the grace of God, it wasn't over, but you can end up there, and some people never get out of that. So on the high end, that's what's at stake. I have another condition that it isn't like a medical thing. It's just something I've observed. I call it low-grade burnout. And my definition of low-grade burnout, which is how I think a lot of people are living, is that the functions of life continue, but the joy of life is gone. So you're not at a halt. Like, you're getting up, you're going to the kids' games, you're going to work every day, you're preaching on Sunday, you're leading your board meetings, whatever you have to do, but you don't feel anything anymore. You're just kind of numb inside. And I've lived in that season as well in my life. And that's not full on burnout because you're going to function. In fact, you could do that for a decade. But is that life and life to the full? Is that John 10:10? I don't think that's John 10:10. And a lot of us, we end up like that old movie. We're like, well, I guess this is as good as it gets, right? This is just how it is. And so I think what's at stake is really, so you want to live your 30s that way and your 40s and your 50s and your 60s, and you want to wait it out until we get into eternity. So I think that's the other thing that's at stake. And people make really bad decisions when they're in burnout territory. That's how they end up, having an affair or doing something that they spend the rest of their life regretting. And I remember talking to one leader once who was going through a season of burnout. And he said, Carey, I am so exhausted and so burned out. I just want to feel something. And that something could be too many drinks. That something could be illicit sex. That something could be, I don't think he did that in his case, but he was just so numb. He was sick of it. And I get it. You don't have to live that way. So the book, I'm asking, what are the tools and the strategies that you need to live in a way today that will help you thrive tomorrow, to truly be at your best? And it's something I discovered after I burned out and have helped a lot of leaders work through. I used to teach this as the high impact leader. And then when I realized, oh, this works for a lot of other people, I thought, well, let's turn this into a book. So polished everything up, did some more research, drilled down hard, and now it's coming out to the world, which I'm very excited about.
Hey, before Sam gets to the next, so excuse me for interrupting you, Sam. Before he gets to the next question, let me ask you this: you mentioned this a question ago, the number of inboxes you had. Now I'm thinking, I haven't added them all.
You probably have a similar amount, don't you?
Probably a similar amount. Do you treat social media like an inbox?
It's interesting. So I have a team now. I'm really blessed. Like you, I have a team. So I'm not personally on every channel anymore. I have a team that monitors all of that. Just sheer volume of people who visit the site or whatever. It gets pretty overwhelming sometimes. So they're looking at it. I actually have chosen some inbox I'm never going to respond to. So I don't know how many unread Facebook messages I have, but they remain unread. I just decided that I didn't announce it. It's just like, no, if you're going to message me through Facebook, I'm not going to answer because I can't. Otherwise, I'm going to spend my whole day reacting. Instagram, because I like Instagram, that's still me. If you hear from someone on Instagram under my moniker, 90% chance that's me, not my team.
All the listening audience just
you're about to get blown up now.
Yeah, I might get bored of that at some point. But I think the point is this, and I feel for the average pastor. I mean, Thom, you deal with this all the time, and Sam, you're dealing with pastors who are leading small churches. And back when I started in ministry, I couldn't afford a cell phone, so there was really your home phone and the church phone. And we didn't even have a church phone because churches were that small. That's how bad it was. But you try to not answer calls during dinner. Well, it's 100 million times more complicated today. And I feel for leaders who, like, every time they sit down to watch Netflix with their kids, it's like they get 3 texts from board members and then 5 Facebook messages and something on Instagram from someone who just attended the church. And it's a constant barrage. And it's not just technology. I mean, people were busy and burning out. Burnout has been around as a term since 1970 when it was coined to describe what was happening in medical professions. But I think it's reached endemic levels now in our culture. And it's just, you don't have to live that way.
That's one thing I like about the book is, one, it's kind of a book for everyone because it's something that even if you're not in an acute phase of your life right now where you're burnout, you might be suffering from this low-grade burnout that you're talking about, which I think is everywhere. And let's say you're in a really good spot right now. Well, there probably will be a season that comes where you're going to experience some of this. And it's good to have this resource so that you can be proactive and know what to do. So I love that about the book, that it really is something that I think everybody can gravitate towards.
We're all one thing going wrong away from being overwhelmed. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're right. You're in the season where everything's fine right now, but all that has to happen is one thing has to change and you can go down that wormhole so quickly. And it is the culture. The culture is exhausted. I think you could argue that we live in a culture of burnout between the political fractionalization, the culture wars going on, the bad news day in and day out, the way we don't seem to like each other anymore, and just the fatigue of being alive today. There is a collective malaise or burnout that is, I mean, you can have a good life, but still you walk outside your house, it's kind of like, you feel the weight.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that vacations and sabbaticals aren't enough. So you have vacations. Some may even have sabbaticals. Why are they not enough? What do you mean by that?
Well, I'll see whether your experience is like mine. I've never taken a sabbatical. I'm not against sabbaticals, but most of the people I know who take sabbaticals go into their sabbaticals or arrange for a sabbatical because they're exhausted. They've worked too hard. They burn the candle at both ends. They go into a sabbatical. They're off for a month, 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever it happens to be. Some get really generous sabbaticals. And usually it goes pretty well. They rebuild their lives. They feel strong. In an ideal world, you go rent a villa in Europe or something like that. Nobody has a budget for that. But imagine that happens and you carve out this idyllic life where you're eating pastries from a French bistro every day or whatever. You're having this amazing time and you're like, I'm healed. And then you go back to work, you go back to your job, and by 11 a.m. on a Monday morning, it's like you got hit by the burnout truck. It's just like, what happened? And the problem is a lot of us are trying to heal the way we spend our time on by taking time off. And time off won't heal you when the problem is how you spend time on. So, the weekend was good. Let's say you'd get Friday, Saturday off, or Saturday, Monday off as a pastor. I know that's a pipe dream for a lot of pastors, but let's just say you get one full day off and a day to run your errands. That's okay, but it's the grind of the 5 days a week when you're working that's exhausting you. And then all the text messages that come in while you're on your day off, and you're like, do I ignore this? Am I going to get fired if I ignore this? Like, it is the rhythm of everyday life that's killing people. So sabbaticals aren't bad. Vacations are wonderful. Most people know how to do those well. It's all the rest of the time that's the problem, and that's why your time off isn't going to heal you.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And as a pastor, something that I've noticed of late is how holidays mean you're busier because people are off. They want to meet, they call, they text. They're not busy with their lives.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So I know when, at least in the States, it's Labor Day, Memorial Day, whatever it may be, it's a 3-day weekend, I'm going to get slammed. So we just had a holiday at the time of this recording. It was a 3-day weekend. Guess what I was doing? I had 2 emergency counseling sessions because people were home. They were thinking. They were overthinking. Both of them came to the house to talk, which I was glad to do.
Free, cheap counseling, which might mean it's of no value at all.
Please, because
let's go through that. That's a real issue. What's that, Tom?
Because our listeners and viewers want that free counseling, and maybe Sam and Amy and I are listening a little bit too.
Okay, so I'm somewhat influenced by Andy Stanley on this one, but first of all, I feel for you, and I've been there many, many times because you get that Saturday text, right? And you got kids, you're in the thick of it right now, and they need your attention, they need your focus, and you get that email, you get that message. Often, what feels like an emergency in the moment isn't an emergency. So can you say, was it like marriage problems, like relational problems or financial problems or something in that?
All of the above.
All of the above. So money and financial problems.
Family drama.
Family drama. Okay. Here's my guess, Sam. They didn't wake up. What day did it happen? Saturday, Sunday, or Monday? Where they had?
It's Saturday. Yeah.
Saturday. So Saturday, right? Which is supposed to be your day off. And anyway, Correct. You're getting ready for church. My guess is they didn't have a perfectly great life Friday night. Wake up Saturday, the whole world collapsed, and now they're like, "We got to text Sam, and we got to get his help." Like this problem has been brewing for a long time.
Years,
right? Years.
Yeah.
Years. So money problems don't happen overnight. It's not like, oh, $100,000 disappeared from our bank. Well, who has that kind of money in the bank? But you know what I mean, right? They don't do that. So here's another approach, because this is a very real issue. And I wish I could have gotten my 30s back had I known this. I get the text.
Mine just left. Whoops.
You got a few years left. So here we go. And say, Carey, I'm so sorry that you and Tony, let's say I'm texting you, Carey, I'm so sorry that you and Tony are having a really bad season. I would love to meet with you. How is Wednesday at 3:00? Now, would that work?
Probably not in this case, but it's great advice.
It's great advice. Okay, so let's push it out. Okay, I say, sorry, Sam, Wednesday at 3 doesn't work. I need to see you today.
Yeah, it was one of those. Yes.
Okay. What do you do then?
I don't know. Obviously,
well, what I would say, I've got a whole chapter in the book about this where I walk people through this. I need to get the book
then. I need to go get this book and
what
read
I would
it in
say
depth.
Is, Carey, as much as I would love to meet with you today, unfortunately, today's not available. I am happy to meet with you after service tomorrow. If you think of service as work, I know that's a whole theological debate we can spend another podcast in, but I'll meet you after the second service tomorrow in my office. And I'll have a half hour then.
You know, I need to learn from the great Carey Nieuwhof. This is why.
Do you think that could have helped? Do you think that could have put them off?
Probably.
Yeah. So what you have to imagine, the problem, and this is the problem is blank space in your calendar, right? People would ask me, what are you doing on Saturday? I'd have nothing in my calendar, even though in my head, I knew it was my family day and my day off, and I'd say nothing. And the moment you say nothing, you're done. They're like, oh, good, help me move the piano.
Yes.
Right? You guys have done ministry long enough to know you're done. So what I do now is I write family time. So here's my counsel to you. When you implement the Thrive calendar, which comes free with the book, you put that over your iCal, your Google Cal, or whatever. You write family day in on Saturday, or pick your day. And then when I bug you with my new crisis, because it just came up, and even though my marriage has been unraveling for years, I have to ruin your Saturday for you to fix it. And you're not going to fix it on Saturday anyway, because these are years worth of problems that an hour of counseling isn't going to solve. True?
Oh, absolutely.
I know you're a good counselor, but
no,
right, it's not going to solve it.
Thank you for the uninformed compliment, but no, I'm a terrible counselor.
That's 100% true. And so what you say is, Carey, I've got a commitment. Most healthy people will respect that. And then if they're like, well, what's your commitment? You can say, I have a commitment with my family. And if they say, well, I'm more important than am I more important than your family? Is your family more important than me? You tell them, yes, actually, my family is more important than you right now. No, you don't do that. But, what you do is you just set up those boundaries, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to work. Now, if you have a truly, like, what would an example of an emergency on a Saturday be? There's a car accident and a 2-year-old is on life support. I would say that's an emergency. And you drop what you're doing. You say, sorry, kids. But how many times has that happened in the last year?
Yeah, it does happen, but not as
you're
often.
You're going to have a couple of those a year of real emergencies. And what you get is you get your family time back.
I tell you what I need to do. I need to learn to say sorry the way that Canadians say it, because you guys say it so much better than us Americans.
As much as I'd love to help you today, I'm sorry. I've got a commitment, but I can see you tomorrow.
See, it's if I could just say it the way you say it, then I would be fine.
Thom, what do you think? You're the dean. You're the granddaddy of all this stuff. What do you think?
It's always worked for me. I do one counseling session with someone as a pastor, and they come away feeling worse, and so they never ask me again.
You're better than your father, Sam. There you go, on counseling.
You know what? That may be true. That still doesn't make me good, though.
We have been talking with Carey Nieuwhof. Once again, his new book, At Your Best. Look at it in the show notes. Click on the link, or you can get it wherever books are sold. And this conversation has just been the beginning of a great possibility for many of you like me who could use this help. Carey, thank you for being with us. And as always,
listen,
thank you
I'm
for
glad
being
we went there. I mean, I could give you the whole framework, and there's a lot more in the book, but this is what it is designed to do. Let's give Sam his Saturdays back. Let's give him Labor Day Monday back. Because how many kids do you have, Sam?
5. And we foster, so sometimes more.
They need their dad. And every pastor listening needs their dad. Your wife needs you, and you need you. You have permission to rest. I read the Old Testament sometimes too, as you guys do. I read it every day. In fact, there's an awful lot of celebrations and rests and don't work today. And we've thrown that out in the church, and we need to bring it back. And then hustle hard on those 5 days and enjoy your time off. And don't look to time off for your vacation to heal you, because it won't. You got to figure out an everyday rhythm. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
That's a nugget. That is just, there are lots of nuggets, but that it really is a nugget. We want to thank Southeastern Seminary. They are committed to helping you get training you need to pursue your ministry from anywhere in the world. In our partnership with Southeastern, if you just put in church answers, that's one word, no space, in your application, they'll waive the application fee. So no matter what stage of your life journey you find yourself, Southeastern wants to help you find your next step in getting equipped to disciple and teach others. In coming to Southeastern, you'll find that seminary isn't just about theological education. It's about ministry preparation. Explore degrees, schedule a visit, or apply today at sebts.edu. That's sebts.edu. Well, Sam and I are delighted, and you don't see Amy, but she's in the production area. We're all delighted to have Carey Nieuwhof on this podcast. It has been rich. Let me just remind you once again to look in the show notes and look at Your Best, and look at that book and get that book. And just this conversation alone has made me want it to be a reference for the long term. Thanks again for joining us today on Rainer on Leadership. Watch us on YouTube or And just tell the world how much you love us there on YouTube. Subscribe on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever your favorite podcasting app is. And join us online, where the largest ongoing leadership community of pastors anywhere is present at churchanswers.com, where we are growing healthy churches together.